Welcome back to another installment of Iron Therapy. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm joined, as always, by our RX Muscle Staff psychotherapist, Lesley Timbol. Lesley, how are you doing on this wonderful summer day?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you?
Very good. Just got back from the gym and physical therapy, and so the ankle is continuing to heal, hopefully. And I'm at a point where in physical therapy where I can't even do physical therapy. I just go there and they basically just do tissue work and massage my ankle, which is nothing wrong with that, actually.
Is that still painful when they do all that work?
Oh yeah. You know, there's a lot of swelling in there. So a lot of people have been asking me. It's not that. I think it's the inflammation that's the problem now. Because when the inflammation is down, I can walk on it much better. And then when it gets all swelled up, it's like I don't want to even put my foot on the floor. So, But today's topic, not to stall or delay it anymore, is going to be cyberbullying, which is, I think, a really big thing in today's internet world. And it's very relevant, I think, to our specific industry, bodybuilding and fitness, because everyone wants to be a YouTube star, right? Everyone wants to try to make money on YouTube, and everyone wants to have their opinions heard. But there are some people that don't put out, like, you know, what I call positive information. Instead, they take another approach, and their channel is based on negative information, which is basically like putting people down, trying to, you know, take top names or people who have a lot of validity in our industry and somehow knock them off their pedestal, so to speak. And in doing so, draw a lot of attention to their own channel by doing that, because they're attacking, you know, well-known people in a negative way. And, you know, it's unfortunately, it's a popular business model for some people, and it works, and, you know, they get a lot of views and then they make money from it. But, you know, it's nothing more than you know, the kid in the playground bullying, you know, another kid because he wants to feel good about himself. Maybe there's something inside himself that doesn't make him feel validated, and he wants to validate him by invalidating other people. And unfortunately, there's a lot of good people in our industry, have really good channels, and they're having to battle with people who are doing this. And you know what? I'm not immune to it. I have a lot of people who do it to me. Not a lot. There's a handful of people. And people always ask me how I deal with it, and, you know, why don't I go on the attack? And because, you know, in the past, I would just, if someone said something about me, I'd go after them, you know. And I do that when it comes to knowledge. In other words, if someone's, you know, challenging me scientifically speaking, or, you know, nutrition, or, you know, diet-based stuff, I'll definitely debate them on that, and I'll go after them, because that's an intellectual, like, exercise. You know, some people call it mental masturbation, but I call it it's definitely, you know, something that you can do, because debate is good in that sense. But when someone takes personal attacks on you or your business, you know, that you run, in order to try to validate themselves, you know, that's a tough subject, and some people, you know, really lose their mind and take it personally. And, you know, one of my spiritual mentors has always been Dr. Wayne Dyer, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But, you know, I spent a lot of time reading his books and listening to his lectures. And, you know, one of the stories he tells about the Buddha. Now, he didn't make the story up, but, you know, it's been a story that's been passed on from generation to generation. The Buddha was, you know, obviously a spiritually enlightened person who would travel from town to town and try to impart wisdom. There was no internet, guys, back then. Sorry about it. There was no Facebook or Instagram. Buddha actually had to get on a horse and travel around and talk to people. And he would go to towns, and there was a story that he went to this one town, and he was talking about, you know, enlightenment and what it takes to get there, and, you know, what you should do, and different practices and meditation. And some guy who was in attendance was putting him down and calling him a fraud, and you're full of it, and you know, you're just doing this, you're a charlatan, and you're trying to, you know, and saying all these terrible things. And the Buddha just was ignoring him, basically, and continuing to talk. And after this, you know, little seminar that the Buddha gave was over, you know, people came up to him and said, you know, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you defend yourself? Why didn't you put this guy in his place? And the Buddha's reaction was, if someone, you know, were to give you a gift or a present, and you do not accept the present, who does the present or gift belong to? And people, you know, were like, what does that mean? You know, what do you mean? Well, if I don't accept the gift, then the gift belongs to the person who is giving the gift. So if I don't accept the negative comments people, you know, pass in my direction, or the terrible things people say, then they don't belong to me. They only belong to those people. And I thought that was, it was hard for me to understand that at first. And then I thought about it, and I remember reading this in one of his books years ago. And it resonates if you think about it, and it's very applicable to today's world of the internet. There are always going to be people that are going to, be jealous of you, or people that want to try to invalidate you to validate themselves, or people who just want to invalidate you for the sake of, getting people to listen to them. It's like the class clown almost. And if you let that affect you or bother you or get into your energy field, it will disturb you, and it will cause you to have problems. But if you ignore it and do not allow it, and do not, quote, accept the gift, it cannot affect you in any way whatsoever. And I always tell people, you have to just focus on what you do, because no matter how much you worry about what anyone else says about you or does, or what their business is, or what they're doing, or how much money they make, it's not going to help you to achieve anything more or less than what you're doing. So what I do is I just focus on myself. I focus on the good work that I do, the good information I put out, the people I help, and I don't worry about, what other people say to me. And I think that that's a tough thing for people to do, because and I don't think I could have handled this or done that when I was in my 20s. In my 20s, I hung out with a lot of like tough street guys, and up in Westchester when I was up there. And, these guys, if you said anything, this is before really the internet. If you said anything, you ran your mouth in the gym or something like that, you got your ass kicked. I mean, and you were labeled a punk, So people like, who do stuff like that, the TROLLS and some of the other guys out there, those are just street punks. They would never challenge anyone on the street, but they have a lot of muscle when they get behind a computer screen. And so they can say whatever they want, but you can't fight people online. So what you have to do is take a different approach and just not allow that to affect what you're doing in a positive way. And that's very difficult. And I wanted you to speak, I know it's a little long and drawn out, but I wanted you to speak on, number one, how people can, have the mindset to do what I'm telling them to do. And then number two, why do people, what's the mindset of the bully or the cyberbully out there?
Okay, so just to the first part, remind me of the first part of the question, Dave.
How do people deal with people criticizing them and saying terrible things about them, even though it's probably not true? A lot of people will say things about people just because they want to try to invalidate them and make people, not as important as maybe what the community thinks they are.
Well, the first thing is to go into what I call logic mode and say, well, is there any truth to this? Regardless of who's posting what, is, a lot of times keep in mind what cyberbullying is. It's about trying to put someone down. And there's a bunch of reasons, and I'll go into it about why people cyberbullying a little bit. But it's to basically put down, spread maybe rumors about them. Basically, it's making fun of somebody. So a lot of times it's not based on truth, or it's only based on half-truths. And what they do is they run with it. So they'll take a small segment of what was said or done, and then they blow it up and not taking into context other factors, which would give a very different impression of what the overall message was initially. So, it's trying to keep in mind what the purpose of the cyberbully is. I mean, the difference between the bullying and cyberbullying is cyberbullying does it in public in a large forum, a media forum, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever like that. Whereas the bullying can take place, behind the school. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be in front of a group. It can be, right, but it doesn't have to be. But, as far as, what people can do about it, I do agree. The best thing to do is ignore it, because you don't want to give them power. You don't want to let them know that, I know what you're saying isn't completely true. I know you haven't told your audience the full truth. And keep in mind, when people cyberbully, there's two characteristics of a cyberbully. One is repetition, which means if they pick on you, Dave, it doesn't mean they're just picking on you. They're picking on other people too. Yeah. So this is a pattern of behavior. The other characteristic is that it is in public forums. Why? Because they want attention, they want the views, and that gives their channel more of an audience. Again, the idea is to make money, and I appreciate that there's different ways to make money, and everyone's entitled to do whatever they want. However, when you're taking someone down, I don't think that's necessarily the best way of doing it. I think you can grow your channel. There's a lot of good bodybuilding channels out there, Dave, that promote bodybuilding and try to promote the sport as well as the athletes. I think that's great. Yeah. I don't think you necessarily have to put people down in order to become popular. I don't believe in that.
Right. Here's another good example too, just not to interrupt you, but like if I have a nutrition company, now I could promote my nutrition company based on the merits of my products and talk about the science and why I put certain ingredients in there and how they, they work together and what the dosages are. Or I can go and I can try to expose and put down other people's products. I can go testing other people's products and say, this is crap or this is shit, and try to sell my products that way by default, because I'm going to say everyone else's sucks and mine are better because of that. That would be a negative way to approach it. Like my belief is that if you do good work and you really focus on what you are doing and talk to people about what you're doing, whether you're selling protein powder or you're selling, refrigerators, or you're selling your car repair knowledge, or whatever you're doing, promote what you're doing in a positive fashion. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing. You cannot control anyone else. And when you try to control other people and put other people down, it draws that negativity into your own end. In other words, you are keeping the gift, so to speak. In other words, all that negative that you think you're giving out, it's actually causing you more negativity than you actually believe, you even understand. So promote yourself in a positive way and don't try to negatively promote people. And I think that'll go a long way in terms of earning the respect of the community too. Because believe me, there's a lot of junk out there. I could expose a lot of products, and I'll do that with just supermarket products, that out there. But I would never try to hurt, my industry people here, who I, work with. Everyone's got to make a living, and I don't need to do that. I could do it in a positive way of how my products I feel are better. And that's just, the direction you take in life, but you attract what you put out there. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when you're doing a lot of negative stuff, you attract a lot of negative stuff as well.
Agreed. And just trying to piggyback what you were just saying, it's the whole stay in your lane. You're good at something, whatever it's a product, a service, just, promote the heck out of that and be authentic. That's the thing. People want people to be real. Yes, there's always going to be people who go on the gossip train, but it's kind of like, who do you want your target clientele to be? And remember, you're a representation of whatever you're selling. Again, whether it's a product or a service. So there's something called a reputation. You develop a reputation. Are you going to be that kind of person, male or female, doesn't matter. Are you going to build your reputation based on putting other people down? Or are you just going to be the best person you can be and deliver the best product or service that you've got? And you want to keep your integrity intact, because people will do something called respect you more.
Yeah. What gets into the mindset of the person who's out there doing stuff like really negative stuff, just trying to dig and really almost like some of these trash, websites, or they used to be the tabloids, they're always looking for the worst possible story that they can expose and blow up and make, and just bring down top level celebrities. I feel like that's what would cause someone to have that, aside from money, obviously wanting to make money, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think it's sometimes when an individual does it's almost because they want to validate themselves more. So if I knock down all the successful people who I know are above me, then that makes me look better. What would that psychological, mindset be defined as?
Everyone has some form of insecurity in their life. But there's different ways of being able to manifest that and be able to address that. And for some people, a lot of times for cyberbullies, they've been bullied in some respect. They may not have been cyberbullied, but they've been bullied to some degree. So it's almost like they almost take it out on other people. So, they kind of learn to saying, hey, I don't like feeling this way. And then they feel a sense of power when they can do it to other people. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's what can happen. Right. That they've experienced in their life. Another is a completely different reason, is they're bored. Dave, do you have any idea how many people are bored? Look at the trolls. I mean, there are so many bored people in this world. if they could use that energy for good, that would make the world such a much better place. But they're so bored. They want the easy way out. Again, is it easy to be negative? Sure, it's easy to be negative.
Right. But you know what? The trolls, I understand trolls. Trolls do it from a point of anonymity because no one even knows who they are, right? I mean, whereas the person who's actually going out there and putting their face out there and saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm going to show you why this guy is, a terrible person today, or why, and tomorrow I'm going to show you why this guy's a terrible person. And the next day I'm going to show you how this person was the top name in the industry. And now he's, an IV drug using, scumbag, why does someone want to take that approach, as opposed to just reporting, things from, a perspective of, hey, you know what, I have insights. I'm going to give you my insights. I have, as opposed to just wanting to take people down. I mean, because there are a lot of, look, I'm probably one of the more well-known people, obviously, in the bodybuilding fitness world. There are other channels out there that are really popular as well, from the Greg Doucette's and the Fouad Abiad's, and the list goes on. There's a lot of people. I don't want to miss anyone, but even the late Jerry Ward. But there are people that attack these channels. Even though 99.9% of what they put out are great stuff. It's like, if I can invalidate these people, then that makes me better. Type of thing. There's got to be some kind of like psychological thing going on that. It just is not right. I don't know if it's a personality disorder or if it's what.
Whether they want to admit it or not, there's a little bit of an intimidation factor. And I don't mean necessarily someone's physically intimidating them. It's about that some people put their identity in their social media. And, I don't mind if people use social media as one aspect of having their identity. But when you put too much of it in there, and it's based on whether it's likes, follows, shares, whatever it might be, it's getting attention, and they don't care if it's positive or negative that people are posting, that they just want attention. It's like that kid that wants attention from their parents, whether it's positive or negative. They want that, to your point, validation, because they're not getting it in other areas of their life, or they're not getting enough validation in other areas of their life. So again, it's easier to put people down. I'm not condoning that, but it's easier to do that than to do some internal work and saying, hey, how can I contribute to the fitness or bodybuilding industry in a more positive way? They may not have the tools, Dave. That's the thing. They could learn that if they wanted to apply themselves, but they have to get over some personal hurdles. So there's probably some skeletons in their closet they need to address.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In order to be able to do that. But some of them will say, no, I don't have skeletons. This is what I like to do. And there might be a little denial there, and that's up to them if they want to go down that road. But some people do have mental health issues in addition. So they'll have, let's say, aggression, hyperactivity. There's a lot of, and whether it's ADD, ADHD, and I'm not saying everyone who has ADD or ADHD are cyberbullies. Let me be very clear about that. I'm just saying sometimes there's something called comorbidity, which means when you have cyberbullying, you can have some of these other conditions, like someone who's very impulsive. They can be prone, again, I'm not saying everyone who's impulsive will be a cyberbully, but they can be prone to that. Let's say substance abuse. You're not in necessarily your right mind, and that can lead to some cyberbullying as well. Narcissism, huge in the industry. Yeah. Whether they think they have the best job or not. Sorry?
Especially in bodybuilding, yeah.
Especially in bodybuilding. But here's the thing. You can use narcissism to your advantage, but not hurt people.
Right.
If you know how to do it properly. But a lot of times, again, that narcissism, I'm the best, or you don't know what you're talking about. It's their way or the highway. There's no other path, unfortunately, in their mind.
Every person that's gonna this is gonna resonate with it. They're gonna think I'm talking about that person, and they're all gonna do some kind of defensive video. It's almost like a textbook response, right? Because anyone who probably is actually doing what we're saying, it's gonna resonate with, even though we might not have mentioned their name, and they're gonna all of a sudden try to attack this video because otherwise it's like we're exposing them almost, right?
Well, again, it's like anything, Dave. It's putting things into context. So, I mean, if people wanted to talk to us or talk to you or talk to me, I have a YouTube channel. If you guys want to do an interview, or I can go on your, if someone has questions, I'm more than happy to address them, because we're talking in a global sense. There's going to be outliers. There's going to be exceptions. There's going to be some, well, what about this? I mean, Yeah, but overall, guys, cyberbullying is not cool.
No,
it's just not cool.
And it's real. I didn't really want to do the show. I really wanted to focus on is how to help the person who's being bullied. And these people could be one of the most, some of the most popular people.
Yeah.
Could be being bullied and can really be negatively emotionally affecting them to the point where they're almost willing to give up their channel because they're just not able to cope with it. Like, I have very thick skin. I give a shit about it, what anyone thinks about me. It just doesn't bother me because I know that as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, then I'm fine with it. But other people are not like that. There are a lot of very sensitive people. And I know those people, who they are. And a lot of them wouldn't even go online to begin with because they can't handle it. But there are people that are in really good positions of doing some great stuff in our industry. And they just, it really irks them when people talk about them like that. What kind of tools can you give these people, aside from saying just ignore it? Because that's what everyone says. But I mean, there's got to be some tools that these people can have to help them deal with getting through someone who's going to having vicious attacks on them for 2 weeks in a row. I mean, without them having a mental breakdown. What do you tell those people if they were to do a session with you, for instance?
Well, first thing is, why do you care? Why do you care about someone if you don't respect them, what they say? It's like, if you want to know anything about bodybuilding, do you really want to, or anything in the news, do you want to go to some gossipy place to get your information? No. You want to go to like something with more facts and science with it. So it's kind of like, consider the source. When you get someone, let's say as an example, I'm going to take something off of cyberbullying just to make an example. Take any bodybuilder who's competing, and you get some person who doesn't even compete. Maybe they train, but they don't compete. And they start being critical about why that person placed the way they did at a show. Sure. If they've never been through a show, they don't understand. Yeah. And it's kind of like you can't, it's learning how to manage your expectations is a really big piece. So, I mean, apart from blocking or just staying away from social media for a bit, I really work with my clients on expectations. And what I mean by that is, where are you going to put your energy and focus on? If you're going to put your energy and focus on garbage, you're going to get garbage. So it's learning how to pivot. And you've heard me say this word before. Yeah. It's learning how to pivot and put your attention to what really counts. Because there'll be people where there'll be, let's say, whether it's a video like this or a post, and let's say I'm just going to use a number. Let's say there's 1,000 comments. And let's say out of 1,000 comments, there will only be 5 negative and the rest are positive. Right. That person usually focuses on the 5.
That's exactly what they do. Exactly.
Even though the great majority is saying something positive, or at the very least neutral, they focus on the negative. So I would say, okay, so what is it about those negatives that really resonated with you? Is there any truth to what they're saying? Because maybe here's the thing. Not everyone's a great communicator. So maybe they're saying something and you're kind of looking at, well, is there any truth to that? Well, let's look at that. Is there any truth?
Don't people think that there's sometimes, we talked about this imposter syndrome before. People think sometimes that maybe someone's exposing them for being because maybe they don't feel validated. Maybe they don't feel like they really deserve to be where they are. Or maybe they think, maybe people think I don't know what I'm doing. And it's someone pushes a button on them and they're like, oh no, he figured me out, even though they're doing great stuff. And it's just an insecurity in them almost that was toggled almost.
In mental game coaching that I do, we call it fragile confidence. And what I do is help people build a more stable confidence. There's a difference between fragile confidence and stable. So stable, it doesn't matter what kind of shit hits the fan. Right. It's still there because you can learn how to trust in your skills and trust in yourself. When people don't have that trust, that's where the fragile confidence comes from. So it's learning how to build that up, because we don't get taught that. That's not taught in school. That's not even taught with coaches. Sure. A lot of coaches with the bodybuilders or any athletes, but mental game coaches will do that with their athletes. You ask any mental game coach that works with any Olympic athlete, they focus on stable confidence because that's so vital to any sport. Yeah.
I know bodybuilders that literally have stopped competing because they couldn't take the criticism, that from people. And this is even before like the whole, internet blew up with social media and people having channels where they're analyzing people and putting them down. But I mean, it happens all the time. And if you could tell the people who are cyberbullies because they only go after people that are very popular. They don't go after like the guy who's the fraud in the gym. Everyone kind of knows him, but no one even cares about it. They only go after the people that they know are going to bring them views to their page. And so I tell people, don't accept the gift, like the Buddha said. Leave it to them. They have to keep it. If you don't accept it, it's still theirs. And you know what? It's not going to affect your life one iota. And if you let it bother you, it will affect you, because now you're allowing it into your energy, field, and you're allowing it to change what's going on in you because you're fixating on it. And that's just not a good thing. And I thought it was important to put out there, because a lot of people have reached out to me when people do videos about me that it irks them because they're like friends of mine or they're clients of mine, and they're like, that's not you. I don't know what's this person, why is he twisting this, or why is she twisting this out of proportion? And I'm like, it doesn't matter, because I don't even read comments on videos, because for what reason? Because like you said, if I have 100 people or 1,000 people who say, great job, Dave, on the video, there's going to be a couple people that say Dave's an asshole, or Dave is out of his mind. Is that what I'm reading him for? To see if there's the 1-2 people who say something negative? That's not going to do anything productive for me. So
think of it like food, Dave. When you go out for dinner, and if you're trying to eat clean, are you going to accept the stuff on the menu that's not healthy for you? Perfect. It's a choice.
Example, yeah.
And that's, and I'm just using food as an example, but words, they're a choice, whether you accept them or not. Now, I know it's easier said than done, but like I said, there's people like myself that help athletes deal with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
or just regular people, like people who
regular people. Absolutely.
There's a lot of very good YouTube channels from people who don't compete. They just report. And then if they become a little too successful, people start to, go after them because they're jealous, or something like that.
And that's the thing. It's kind of the, if someone else is more well-known, there's that competition factor.
And there's one thing about like cracking a couple of jokes about a person. And
right.
There's another thing where you're taking like personal like attacks and trying to, basically assassinate their character because you feel that will invalidate them and validate you more. And that's where that's where the punk aspect comes in, where you're just getting malicious. And there's something else deeper, I think, in a person who is going to do that. Even though there's a business model, I understand behind that, but there's something deeper. Like, you don't have to go that far, but people do go that far because they personally have problems with other people succeeding. And there's an innate jealousy inside them that they can't cope with. So they cope with it this way by trying to show prove, or in their mind at least, that the person is not authentic, I guess you could say.
And for people who make that choice, Dave, whether they see it as being envious or not, they could be just saying, hey, this gives me success, so this is what I like. Right. And they're certainly free to make that choice. But again, that's a reflection of them, because anyone who's watching sees the type of person they are, as far as that's how they become popular, by doing those kinds of things.
Well, the problem is it's an empty type of success, because you're really not providing anything other than negative information about other people. So ultimately, it leaves you empty inside, is what it happens. And then those people usually have like nervous breakdowns and then disappear.
Well, either they. Oh, you mean the people who get attacked?
The information providers, the websites that do this.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen a million times. I've seen a lot of like people who had very popular channels just disappear, and because they just weren't really doing anything productive. They were doing things. It was all based on a negative premise, and but I don't want to see other people succumb to this, because there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of good channels out there with a lot of people doing good information and working very hard. And don't let other people invalidate you. That's a really important message. And if you have problems dealing with it, because some people are more sensitive than others, contact Lesley and have a session with her. And I'm telling you, you'll feel 1,000,000 times better after working through this with her, because she will show you the absurdity of what's going on. And it's always good to have an impartial third party who kind of can just look at it from a non-emotional standpoint and give you a really valid opinion.
As well as strategies.
Yeah, exactly, to cope. And you're going to do more on this on your channel now, right?
I am.
All right. Well, actually, we might. This is not live today, so we probably you'll have to go over to Lesley's channel and watch the rebroadcast of that. But thank you, Lesley, for giving us your insights into this. I think it's a very important subject. I'm sure we're going to talk about it again here on the channel.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of Iron Therapy. I'm Dave Palumbo with Lesley Timbol. We will see you next time.
Take care.